Women are running businesses, households, finances, relationships, and careers. That alone makes us leaders. Combine all we have to do in our personal lives with the pressures of growing professionally, burnout and overwhelm may not be far behind. If you struggle with fostering a mindset that helps you think like a leader, an executive, or the boss that you are, let's change that today. I'm so excited to chat with Executive Coach Latesha Byrd about how women can start thinking like leaders in their work and personal lives. Latesha is sharing how anyone can excel in their work environment and create the impact they desire. Latesha is the founder and CEO of Perfeqta, a boutique consulting firm that helps organizations build thriving cultures through intentional leadership and data-driven strategies. She has worked with hundreds of companies to implement initiatives and programs that transform the employee experience, retain top talent, and build a high-performing culture. Latesha has been featured in Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and more. Hi, Latesha. Welcome to the show. So I gave a very high-level overview of the work you do, and I would love if you could provide us with some more context. How did you end up becoming an executive coach, and how would you describe the work you do?
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited for this conversation. And, to be honest, I never would have thought that I would be getting to do work that I love every single day. I started my business 10 years ago. I was 25 and, just getting my way into corporate America. I think it's going to be helpful for your audience to know is that I have always operated through a lens of just never settling and always believing in myself and going for any and everything that I wanted, right? I never really saw any obstacle as a absolute no. It was maybe not yet, but I'm going to figure out how I can get there. And that really came from, me growing up in a single parent household. My mom raised me. I saw her sitting at the kitchen table trying to figure out what bills we're going to pay this month, what bills we're going to pay next month. And, after seeing just that financial struggle, as a little kid, I remember this so vividly. I was 8 years old and I was like, this is not going to be my future, right? I realized at a very young age that I wanted to control my life and I didn't want my life to control me, right? So I did everything within my power to, just kind of excel and expand myself beyond what I saw. And so that led to me taking school very seriously, getting really active in college, went to UNC Charlotte and NC State for grad school. And, I had 5 internships when I was in college. I had a job waiting on me. I know but I also started working at 15, I will say. I've always loved the hustle, the grind. I'm a Capricorn, so that's just how we are. And I had a job waiting for me after grad school. And so a lot of my friends would reach out to me and say, hey, how did you get this job? How did you get this internship? How did you get this opportunity? Right. And so because of that, I just started helping people, giving them career advice, saying, hey, let me look at your resume. Let me help you prepare for this interview. And as more and more and more folks started to see that I was helping others with that, I started seeing that they would get more money. I remember my pro fight. My sorority sister said, oh my gosh, your help helped me land a $50,000 salary increase, right? That's a big deal back in 2015, right?
Yeah.
Just when she said that, I said, oh, I'm going to start charging. And so that actually led to me starting my business. So I always say that my business founded me. I didn't just found it, right? And so that was how my business started, career coaching and resume writing. I eventually transition out of the so tactical pieces and focus more on the executive coaching. I now have also not started to, but it's been years now working inside organizations to help them really build inclusive workplace cultures, high performing workplace cultures, for all people. And through my experience of, starting my business, becoming a coach, I also worked in talent acquisition and corporate. Now I just kind of get to marry all of those worlds, tell companies from the inside out, but also help individuals as well that are trying to navigate corporate America and really just take ownership of their lives.
Wow. Okay. So there were so many points you made that I want to talk through, but I'm not going to do that because there are some other things I want to ask you. But first, congratulations on 10 years. That is such a milestone. City Girl Savings, my company, also celebrated 10 years. And I think we had DM'd each other around that time, which is so funny. But congrats on that. Also, I'm a Virgo. So, like, earth sign. I totally
we here.
Yes, 100% totally get you and the grind and the hustle and like wanting to work. Kudos. And, I commend you for that. And hearing your story was super inspiring, especially being like a young child and realizing, you know what, this is not what I want out of life. Instead of kind of taking that scenario and saying, oh, this is all I'll ever have, or this is all I know, you really made that intentional decision to say, nah, this ain't it. And that's huge. Like the younger a person can realize that, the better. So that's awesome to hear.
And I keep this picture by my computer here of me when I was a little girl. This was me graduating from daycare, actually.
Wow.
And so I just keep it there as a reminder to that girl right there, like that little girl who was like, I'm going to become everything I've ever wanted and more. And it just keeps me motivated.
I love that. And I can't wait to kind of dive in and hear some of your expertise. I think maybe we can start with like taking it back to basics. Now that you've transitioned into executive coaching, can you share, in your opinion, like what it really means to actually think like an executive, and if there are any specific mindset shifts that women need to have to really get into that leadership mentality?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, one thing I do want to share is that being an executive has nothing to do with the title, right? Being a leader has nothing to do with the title, right? It's about how you approach your work. It's about how you communicate your value. It's really about learning to operate from a place of ownership instead of just obligation, right? Mm-hmm. It's about, not just like thinking about the what needs to get done, but the how is going to get done and the why. As a coach, I spend a lot of time with my clients, really helping them even take a step back and see the bigger picture, like really truly understand how the work that they're doing is moving the business forward. It's not just about being productive and checking, tasks off of a to-do list. It's really about understanding like how is my role supporting the success of my team, my clients, whoever I'm serving, but most importantly, the business, right? And I've seen that once we're able to really understand the value that we have, that we provide, that allows us to show up more confidently. That allows us to say, hey, I'm going to bring a fresh perspective in this space, in this conversation, and really not back down. I also see that in order to show up as an executive, the term executive presence is something that, I have my own thoughts about that term, but I just want to say that there is no set way to be an executive. And when you think about executive presence, you get to decide what that looks like for you. But confidence is the number one most important thing. And, confidence is something that you have to work and build as a muscle. You got to get your reps in. You don't just wake up and say, okay, I'm confident today. Even me, right? I have to do a lot of work on my mental before I even do the physical work. So I spend a lot of time doing visualization, doing something called shadow boxing. I think about what I want my ideal day to look like before every meeting. How do I want this meeting to go? How do I want to show up What questions am I going to ask? How am I going to respond if this comes up? Like that preparation will also help with the confidence. Confidence is strategic, right? It's not just an emotion, but confidence is strategic. And so the more that, we can move strategically, but really be prepared, that is going to allow us to have that presence of an executive.
I think you shared two really big points that I want to just, reiterate. The first one is kind of thinking bigger picture, right? Like wherever the listener is in their career, whether they're working for themselves or for a company, right? It's thinking, how is the work I'm doing, how is it going to grow the business or expand the business or serve my clients or serve, our customers, right? So I think thinking bigger picture is something that will need to happen for someone to kind of get into that executive or that leadership mindset based on what I'm hearing. The other thing that stood out to me is visualization. So, visualization is something that I do myself, but I don't do it on the scale that you shared. I do it on a scale from like, what do I want my dream life to look like, right? Like, I can put myself in that place in that time, and see everything. But I love the granularity of what you described, right? Instead of thinking bigger picture like dream life, dream meeting, dream sales call, dream, conversation with my manager, dream man, right? I think that's such a really good point that I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about, but I can see how impactful it could be.
It's the intention, it's just being intentional. And, also, and I'll speak from my own personal experience. And I think actually for a lot of, your listeners, like 2025 has been a year where it's been a lot of ups and downs. It's like, what do you say? Like we're going through unprecedented times and it's like every day it is something, right? Like, are we at the end of the world? Like, I need to know.
Right.
And it's like, who would have ever predicted that where we are now, is where we would have been. And it can be debilitating for some people to dream of that 10-year vision or that 5-year vision. So it's like, how can you start thinking about that today? But I will say, like, I agree. Like, I do think about dream life and I do think about those different things. And I have so I just did like my H2 goals. So, for the second half of the year, and I have like 4 categories. And so I use that, like thinking about what I want to be by the end of this year. And then each day in the morning, I read through those goals. And then I think, like, how can I show up in service of this future image of me? So
that's incredibly helpful. I think you had mentioned confidence is something that's strategic as well. And I feel like a lot of women potentially struggle with this. I think most women already lead in their personal lives, right? They're leaders of their own lives, whether they realize it or not. But how can someone identify if they are playing small in their career or their business, or just simply underestimating their potential to be a leader?
There's a couple of things that I would say there. And you're right. So many women, we are taking care of so many other people. I see it all the time. And, we're taking care of our families. We might be caregivers. We may have partners. We may have children, relatives. And then we're also doing that at work, and studies also show that we women are underrepresented in leadership roles. We're underpaid. And we do work a lot of, we're putting in a lot more hours. We're doing additional labor and we're getting paid less for it. And so I would take a look at it from, actually, let me start with the first thing before I jump into this other piece. Creating a brag sheet. That is something that I would have all of my coaching clients do, right? I should have said this at the beginning, but in 2020, I launched a career coaching community called Career Chasers. Community is really important because as women, what I found is when we are going through things in our organizations and we feel as if like this is just happening to me, but it's happening to so many women, we just don't always talk about those experiences. And so I created this community so that we actually could share and talk about what we were going through, right? I scaled that to 600 members across 10 countries and 20 industries and ended up selling that last year. So I could focus on, my business Perfeqta. I'm saying all that to say that confidence was like the biggest thing that we talked about often. And so a brag sheet is where you write a list of your accomplishments, all of them, right? And that is something that you keep up with and update. I honestly would say weekly. Like I even on my calendar have like a hour block, 8 a.m. every Friday, which sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, I'll be honest. But I take that time, I hold that space to like reflect on the week and my wins. So reflecting on your wins on a regular basis, reading those, and just making sure that you keep up with your receipts, you keep up with your results. And also talk to your people, like talk to people around you, whether that's your friends, your family. Like sometimes you have people in your life that see things, like see you in a much different, through a different lens that you may be seeing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's this word called humility. Like, right? Kendrick Lamar has a song, Be Humble, right? I love Kendrick Lamar. I'm a big Kendrick fan. But like, no, as women, we do not need to be humble. I don't believe in humility. Not for us. We are way too on the other side of humility where we're letting people play with us. Like we really have to stand on business, not play small. And so what I would say is once you come up with your brag sheet, your receipts, then you want to look at two things, your impact and your influence. If you realize that you're being impactful, you're making a difference, you're adding value in your workplace, but your influence is not growing at all. When I mean influence, I mean that you are invisible, right? Because women oftentimes, we are, especially women of color, we can be invisible, but also hyper visible at the same time, which is a very strange dynamic to operate in. But if you find that your impact is growing, you're adding value, but what you're getting in return is not, there's something that's out of alignment there. So I think that's one of the biggest things, right? It's like, am I holding myself back? Are other folks holding me back? If I speak up or advocate for myself and what I need, like what's going to happen to me? And self-advocacy is really important once you realize that you might be out of alignment.
Yeah, I love the idea of a brag sheet because it's so easy to just forget all of the good we do as women. And whether that's work or personal life, right? Like it's so easy to forget. And we just take on so much that, whatever happened last week, I forgot about. So having that list of things that remind me of all that I've accomplished would be really impactful. So that's such a great idea.
Yes. And one more thing I would say too is having like a, whatever you want to call it. I used to call it an amen folder, a praise folder in my email inbox. And I've been doing this since even before I started my business when I was in corporate. And so whenever someone would send me an email with some kudos or kind words or a compliment, I would save that to that folder. Right. And so whenever I was having like a tough time, like a tough day, I would just go to that folder just to like remind myself, like, okay, like you really are that girl. You know what you're doing.
I love that. And you called it your amen folder. Is that what you said?
Yes.
I
Yep.
love that. That's such a good idea. I like that because sometimes too, and maybe this is just me, but sometimes, I think about my accomplishments and, I can give myself a pat on the back and appreciate what I've done. But hearing praise or kudos from someone else like has a different meaning, at least to me. And so having that kind of handy where you can just go email by email by email by email and see, the positive feedback people have about you seems really impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you. Like, I really have worked on self-love and self-acceptance over the last, year. It is nice to hear it from other people sometimes. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's good that we love ourselves, right? I mean, that's number one. If we can't love ourselves, how can we expect anyone else to? But I think as overachievers or high achieving individuals, again, speaking for myself, I can be so focused on what's in front of me and what I'm trying to work towards that I forget, like, oh, I've come a long way in the process. So, kind of hearing it from other people helps me remember, I've worked hard and, I can recognize that.
Absolutely. And as you should recognize it, right? And recognize it for yourself.
Right.
Don't wait till, yes, have the praise folder, whatever you want to call it, but don't wait until the annual review, right? Like do your own self-review and self-audit. Share that with your boss, right? Like if you're not having regular conversations about your career growth, like it doesn't have to happen every week, but at minimum, like quarterly, squeeze it in, maybe monthly. But finding those ways to not just like keep up with those wins, but share those wins. This what do they call it? The squeaky wheel gets the
the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yeah. Like finding a good balance of, sharing that. And this is something I used to teach in my like confidence trainings is that you don't even have to talk about your wins in a way that you are comparing yourself to someone else. You can compare your current you to your past you. Like, right? Like I am so proud of the fact that, I used to be so nervous to speak in front of a group of people or to speak up in a meeting. And now I'm so happy to be leading these meetings and to be leading strategy. Like even saying things like that, where you are recognizing your growth in front of your boss, that will also register in their head. Like, oh yeah, she is doing that.
Oh, that's great advice.
Yeah, a little tactic.
On that topic, I would love your thoughts on this next question. So, when I worked in corporate, I saw a lot of people take on additional responsibilities without a title or without a raise to actually go with it. Maybe they were acting manager, acting team leader. What are your thoughts on companies who take this approach with their employees, and how can women advocate for themselves professionally, in these situations, whether it's a raise, a bonus, a new title or anything like that?
Yeah, it happens a lot.
I bet.
And unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic world where they're going to try to get everything they can out of us without paying us, right? I've seen it too many times.
Yeah.
Almost to the point where we as women are like, should I say something? I don't know, right? And here's the thing, if you are getting more responsibilities, right? If you're getting more, they call it an opportunity or stretch opportunity or what have you. But if a company is giving you more responsibility and you're not getting anything back in return, it's not just an opportunity, it's also a liability. It can impact your burnout, or it can lead to burnout. It can lead to exhaustion. You're trying to juggle so many different things, right? You're trying to hold it all together. And that's just really unfair to us. It's inequitable. And so, in my company, we work with a lot of organizations around building out policies and programs that do invest in their women talent. We talk about fair pay. We talk about equitable pay. And so what I would recommend if anyone is just trying to navigate that, right? Maybe you want the extra work, you want the extra projects because you want to be able to get that visibility and show your potential. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need, right? It might be hey, we can't do it right now, but let's revisit it in 3 months, right? Let's revisit it in 6 months, right? But definitely make the case for yourself. It might not be just like a pay increase. Do you need more support on your team, right? For anyone that is leading a team and you're seeing that you're getting stretched thin, your team is getting stretched, like what type of support can you bring in for your team? Can you hire someone else? Can you bring in just some additional support? Can you bring in some training, right? How can they continue your company? When I say they, how can your company continue to support you in a variety of ways? They may not know that you need the support until you ask, right? And there is strength in communicating, like, I need support. One thing I've seen us do that can harm us is not speaking up for the help that we need out of fear that I don't want to be seen as if I don't know. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. Right. I want to maintain this image that I have it all together, but then behind the scenes, like I am working until 1 a.m. in the morning. I am dreaming about work. I'm actually having nightmares about work. It's not even dreams. Like we should not be dreaming about work. I've been there before and it was not good. Like we need to have strong boundaries and rest and all of that. And so anyways, it is a strength to ask for help. It is a strength to ask for support. The strategy behind it is how you do it. And so Not just saying like, oh my gosh, I am struggling and y'all, I'm about to quit if y'all don't help me, right? It's not that. It's, hey, this is the value that I have been providing. Here is the results of that value. And I actually want to provide even more value. But in order for me to be able to do that and do it well, these are some of the opportunities that I've identified that will allow me to add more value, right? That's the way that you want to, pitch it and frame it. So it doesn't seem like you're asking from a place of weakness, but from a place of strength.
That's a great advice. And I love the notion of speaking up because first off, you don't get what you don't ask for. Second off, if you are coming across that you can handle it and you don't need support and you're fine, why would they offer that? Right. So it's like they don't know. So I can definitely see how speaking up would be important. I'm also curious to hear your thoughts on if someone speaks up, shares what they need to continue doing the job at the, level they need to, at what point do they maybe move on to something else if the company doesn't oblige, right? I mean, at some point, you could feel taken advantage of, or you can feel like your requests aren't being heard. And I'm sure it's situational, Latesha, but I would love to just kind of hear your overall thoughts on at what point do people just move on from that position?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Something that our mentor told me many years ago is like, you'll know when you're done. You'll know. It wasn't in relation to business or work. We were talking about dating and this relationship, and she was like, you'll know when you're done. And whenever I think about moving on from something, quitting something, pivoting, like that's the thing that continues to come up for me. Like as women, one of the things that I love about us is our intuition and our gut. That's why I believe in gut health, which that's not why we're here today, but like ladies, take care of your gut because we make decisions from our gut, right? So we know when it's time to move on. Are we allowing ourselves to see it, right? Like that's the hard part, is like having the actual awareness to accept this is the reality of my situation, right? We give a lot of grace sometimes where grace isn't due. And that, again, that ends up harming us. Yeah. I am someone who's kind of like, I'm going to like milk this opportunity, but I'm going to see what else is out there just in case, right? Like I always kept my LinkedIn updated. I would tell my clients that never stop looking. Just take a peek and see what roles are out there, Keep your LinkedIn network kind of warm and engaged. Like make sure you're continuing to network with folks. Don't get too comfortable. And it is for anybody listening, like it is so hard to get to a point where you recognize that it's time for me to move on, right? But once you really fully accept that, then that's when you can actually put in some action behind creating change, getting you to where, you are going to be at a company that's going to value you and see you for everything that you are offering. So I say before you jump and quit, like make the ask, make the case, have the conversations, because you never want to leave a situation thinking like, I could have done more here, right? I could have done more. I don't want to live with regret. I'll live with fear. I do a lot of things in fear every single day. I'm always taking risks. I'm always out of my, comfort zone. But I don't want to live with regret. I don't want to look back at a situation, relationship, or anything and say, I did not give this my all, right? And so once you do that, I have found that we are much more confident in our decision to move forward. Yeah. Once we can say, like, I've tried, I made the ask, I pitched the case, they ignored, like, right? Then you can say, all right, I've done everything I can do. So hopefully that guilt of leaving goes away.
What great advice. And it's so funny you say that because I was just going to say that, like, it's going to be uncomfortable to change or to leave a job or to transition or start a business or whatever the case may be. But that's usually where the amazing results come from, right? Getting out of your zone of comfort and putting yourself in a position where you can make exponential growths and level ups. And so it's nice to hear you say that because I'm sure someone is listening thinking, I know it's time, but I'm scared or I'm not ready or I don't want to be uncomfortable or what if it doesn't work out? And what if it does work out?
It does. Yeah, I was just going to say that. Like, what if it does? Our brain is wired to see the red flag. We're wired to see the risk, right? It's our brain is there to protect us, right? But what if it does work out? It's such a beautiful way to frame a hard decision or a risk that we're ever taking. So I love that.
And I agree with you in that getting out of your comfort zone and taking risks really does build confidence in yourself. Like it's almost like you learn to trust in your ability to do things that make you uncomfortable, but also to, excel and continue to grow, even if you don't know what the future holds.
Success leaves clues. That's something that my business coach says all the time. Because even me, I'm like, I don't know if I can get another, big contract. And he's like, do you know you? Success leaves clues. And so I'd say for anybody, really sit down with yourself, go through your story, go through your journey, think about some of the hardest things that you've done and know we can do hard things. We really can. And we do it every day.
I love that. And what a nice business coach you have.
He's amazing. I cannot live without a coach, without a therapist. I have to have those things in my corner, those people in my corner.
I hear you. So I want to ask one more question about, becoming an executive or moving into that role before we transition into maybe boundaries and stuff like that. What are some signs that someone can look for within themselves that they are ready to actually step into a more executive level or leadership type role or mindset? Are there any metrics or KPIs or habits or just things that they should keep an eye out for that will tell them, hey, you're ready for this, additional step up?
Yes. So for that, I will say it may not be confidence. I know we talked a lot about confidence, but readiness may not feel like confidence. Roles are meant to be grown into, even for promotions, right? And so it could show up as maybe there's some boredom. Maybe you have been doing the same thing day on, day in. You're like, whew. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe you are recognizing that there are bigger, better, bolder ways to do the work that you're doing, but because of the role that you're in, you don't have that influence to make that change, right? You see how your team could be operating a lot more effectively, or you also have just been consistently delivering the value. You kind of can feel where your career is being stalled a bit. So I would say, looking at the impact of your work, are you working with decision makers? What is that level of influence that you're operating at? Are you a go-to person? Are people coming to you for things, for input, for feedback that is beyond your role? Those could be some telltale signs that you have outgrown your role. So, we should be tying our work to KPIs. How you, as little kids, I was this type of girl, just very curious. I would always ask why. I would keep asking why, and I would keep asking why. I know my mom was like, girl. And, even my teachers were like, in my report card every year, she talks too much. I was bored. I had outgrown, the curriculum. I was like, get me out of here, right? Saying all that to say, tying your why to everything. Why am I doing this? Okay. Who is it helping? Why is it helping them? How is it helping them? Go through all of the how, what, when, where, why, how, whatever. Keep asking yourself those questions to get to how your work is showing up for the company. I was facilitating a retreat for a client in DC earlier this year, and we talked about this word or this term called impact players. For anybody who's listening, I would recommend it's a great book, but it talks about how can you become an impact player in your organization. And so kind of had everyone do an exercise where they really had to think about how their work supports the whole business. And there was one person who stood up because she said, she's in an operational role. And she said, I never really thought about how my work impacts the whole business because it is very behind the scenes. But I realized a lot of balls would drop if I wasn't doing the work that I was doing. And it allowed me to understand Like, no, I'm actually adding a lot of value here. And that's another way to look at it too. If I wasn't doing this work, if I wasn't coming up to work every day or logging into Zoom or whatever, if you work from home, like if I wasn't doing this work, what would not get done? That's a really great way to take a step, take another way of looking at the value that you're adding. But yeah, I mean, it could look like, boredom. It could look like frustration. It could look like misalignment, right? Maybe if you look around and you see that, you could do your boss's job, like that's also a good sign too. And, again, your leader may not be, why would your leader want you to leave your role, right? If you're really good at what you do. So like, don't rely on your leader, your manager to let you know when you've outgrown. Really, really strong, great leaders do that. Some do not, because it's very convenient for them to have a high performer, right? But that is something to think about. You have to look for that on your own.
What a great perspective. I think, for me, my thought would have been like, okay, well, someone is ready to like take the next level or grow professionally when they feel ready and they feel confident and they're excited. And it's really a great perspective to hear that that's not always the case. Like there could be other signs that you have outgrown where you currently are and you're ready for the next level that don't have anything to do with, confidence or feeling excited or ready for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, really quick, I would love your thoughts on this. Have you read the book Big Magic? Have you read that book?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's it about?
Well, so it's about living your life creatively. So finding the things that you're passionate about or that, you can have that impact, especially if it's not with your work, right? Not everyone is living their passion every single day when they go to work, right? But there is a way to find that big magic, that passion, that purpose, if you will, even if it's outside of work. So I wanted your thoughts on if you read that book because you kind of mentioned impact and purpose, and I think if someone is lucky enough to find that with a profession or to be able to make money from that, what a blessing. Not a necessity, right? You can still have a great quality of life without that. But I think when the two combine, that's something that's really exciting.
I do too. I will say it's funny. Like I have that thought just about every day when I wake up because I really am just so excited to do my work. I look forward to every meeting. I look forward to like checking my email. I'm like, ooh, what's going on today? Like let me see what's on my calendar. Like I am just in such alignment with the work that I do. And it is such a blessing, like to really be able to love the work that you do. I don't take it for granted at all. But, there's even for folks who love their work, like we still got to like log out sometimes
Right.
or take breaks or go on vacation and just take a step back because you can still burn out doing work that you love. But I love the concept of big magic because, there's beauty in everything. Something I always think about too is like maybe if I'm ever, and I have been out of alignment in my own business, right? But if I'm out of alignment, if I'm not really feeling fulfilled anymore, I just take that energy and I pour it back into myself. Like maybe I don't know what to work on in my business, or maybe I don't know what to work on in my career. Like, let me just work on myself, like reading, getting inspired, the fitness, wellness, whatever that might be. But I just take that energy like inward. And then I figure out, okay, like what is my next step going to be from here?
That's really beautiful. I think for me and my past experiences, if I felt misaligned with work, I often try to figure out the solution. Like, well, why do I feel this way? What do I need to do differently at work? And I make the focus work, right? When maybe the focus doesn't need to be on work, and that is what the universe is trying to tell me, right? So I love that notion of looking inward and focusing on yourself instead. And I'm sure you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that when you do that, you usually find the solutions you're looking for to get back in alignment with work or any other area of life.
Yeah. Sometimes in the showers, sometimes like going for a walk, just these little like light bulbs go off. It's like, oh, but I
Yeah.
was so busy trying to force it. Sometimes I just need to sit with it. Right.
Yes. Yeah. So, speaking of burnout, we live in a society where it's like hustle, 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 work, 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 grind, grind, grind. And I have fallen into that trap many a times. But with burnout and overwhelm being so common in our workplace, what are, in your opinion, some of the biggest traps that can lead a person to burnout, and how can people avoid those traps so they aren't constantly feeling drained or overwhelmed?
Yeah. Yeah. You brought up the society that we live in. I mean, we glorify productivity, we glorify like making the most out of every second and every minute. And it's very important for us to find ways to measure our worth that's not tied to our work, that's not just tied to like our job. I mean, even for me, right? A lot of my identity is wrapped up in the work that I do. It's a big part of me. I'm passionate about it. But let's say that your whole identity is your work. Like you measure your own self-worth based on your work and you lose your job or something happens personally and you have to step away from work to focus on caregiving or, raising a family, like that can just feel like the whole, curtain has been ripped from under you, right? And so, anyways, I'm saying all that to say that, you know, really assess your own self-worth and measure your own self-worth on things that are aligned to what you do every single day. But most importantly, we may have to learn how to say no. And I'm sure people say that all the time when it comes to solving for burnout. It's a lot harder than that. I don't believe no is a full sentence. I'll be honest with you. I'm not just going to go to someone and say no. I think that's like really abrasive, but you can say no without apology. You can say no with kindness. You can, set a boundary. Sometimes we're just in survival mode for so long. We're in that hustle, we're in that grind that we even forget what ease feels like.
Oof.
We forget what it feels to just like let go and, release. And so my tips for burnout is to make rest a part of your routine. Um, Take time off. Please use your PTO. So many of my clients do not use their PTO. And I'm like, this is for you to take off.
Mm.
The work will be there when you get back. It's going to be okay. And you don't have to take a big grand vacation to take PTO. Take a Friday off. Take next Wednesday off, right? Just sit on your couch, and commit to not doing anything at all. No meeting, no call. If you can, turn your phone off, delete social media, just completely detach and unplug, right? I know that it's harder for some that have responsibilities and things. So of course, whatever you can do to rest, maybe it's like finding a little space to do a nap or to just close your eyes, finding joy in the everyday, is really important. But just let go of the idea that rest makes you less valuable. We need sleep, especially women. I think I saw a study recently that said we need at least like 8, 9, maybe 10 hours of sleep. Like we need a lot more rest than what we've been conditioned to believe. And if you don't, and I'll say this as someone I'm getting up there in age, but I'm a lot wiser now. I'm still young, but our bodies will shut down on us.
Yes, they will. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, just you don't want to get to a point where your body shuts down for you because it will. And if you see the signs, you want to do something about it. And so, rest, sleep, boundaries, routines. Other thing I will say too is decision fatigue. Especially if you are a high achiever at work, if you are an executive, if you're leading a team, you're making a lot of decisions every day.
Mm-hmm.
How can you eliminate and reduce the amount of decisions? I love a work uniform. I actually bought the same 2-piece set in 5 different colors. And I just would rotate it out. Monday, I'm wearing pink. Tuesday, I'm wearing gray. Wednesday, I'm wearing green. That way I don't have to wake up and think about what am I wearing today. So that helps to take out some of that decision fatigue, meal prepping, having a meal prep service or something. I don't have to try to worry about what am I going to eat for the day, things like that. Prioritization as well, like making a decision on how I'm going to spend my time and like really try to stick to that. And it could be something as small as like taking an actual lunch break. Like don't work through lunch. Step away from lunch, even if you just do 30 minutes.
Yeah. I feel like you gave some really good insight. So if anyone listening is struggling or feel like burnout is not far away, really take heed to what Letitia's saying. I think too, when I worked in corporate, I was growing in my career, but I knew I wanted to run my business full time. So I continued to show up and do a great job. But what I'm getting at is the more I grew, the more the expectations of how much time I needed to put into the job grew, right? So I remember maybe a couple months before I left, my manager at the time had told me, you always log off right at 5. If you want to continue growing, you might have to stay later. And I think if we're not careful, we can fall into that, oh, I got to do this. I got to put in more hours to grow or to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's really not the case. Having those boundaries and getting your work done, of course, is really important. Otherwise, you could find yourself working 12-hour days and have nothing to show for it, but maybe a blown out back. So, yeah.
So did you start like working later or did you just
Well,
ignore that?
I knew I was leaving, so I just, kind of rolled my eyes and said, okay, and, just continued about what I was doing. But would I have stayed later? Maybe. Now that you asked that, I wonder if I would have. And probably just knowing the type of person I am and where I wanted to go in the company, I probably would have listened to what she said and stayed on later. I was always really good about taking my vacations, though. I was never the person who had hours rolling over at the end of the year. So, yeah, so maybe I would justify it.
Yeah, and also like, girl, if you want to work till 6, okay, but what you got going on has nothing to do with me. I'm logging off at
Right.
5 if I'm getting
Exactly.
work done. But it's perception, right? But there are other ways to show your value and versus like staying on for another hour or so. Because my thing is that to me would be a sign of like, are you just being inefficient in your job,
Ooh.
right? Why do you need to work longer to get your job done? Right.
Right.
I would have asked the question, like, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
So, tell me, can you explain to me or, share with me your experience with working a little bit later? Like, how has that, helped you grow here? I would love to learn about your experience. Like, when people say ignorant things like that, I always want to jump to like, tell me more about that. Like,
Yeah.
and then you realize like y'all are just talking. It's just all about perception. It really is.
That's a really good point because, I worked for a major financial institution and what she said, I've seen, right? I saw it there. She wasn't just pulling that out of thin air. That was the culture that this company had kind of, created. And that was almost the expectation if you wanted to keep growing and keep getting raises and titles and all of that. But it shouldn't have to be like that. And to your point, where are the inefficiencies that, are driving that culture?
Yeah, yeah. And hey, I will say like sometimes it's a grind season. Like there are seasons where you are gonna have to like pull some longer hours. You are gonna have to work later, that is a part of it if that is in service of getting you to where you need to go. But for you, you knew that you were going to be leaving. So you're like, I'm logging out at 5. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Absolutely not. but again, it helped because I knew what I really wanted and where I was trying to go. So I can understand if somebody doesn't know that, how they may feel pressured into doing what their manager or the company culture tells them they should do.
Yeah, exactly.
So, if someone is listening to this episode and they are just feeling stuck in their career or they're feeling uninspired and they don't know how to move forward or what to do next, what is the first thing that they should do to get themselves unstuck and maybe move forward in a confident way?
Yeah, yeah. It's so hard. For me, I will always read a book. Like when I feel uninspired, whatever it is that I'm feeling uninspired about, I will go read a book. So maybe it's like Big Magic. I'll need to read that. There's a book around how to get unstuck. But, that might not be your thing. Journaling. I will always push my clients to journal. Some of them do, some of them are like, that's not for me. Journaling, spending time with yourself and just getting honest about, how you're feeling. I learned this also in therapy too, like just building a more emotional mental connection, like paying attention to the times within your work that you feel inspired, that you do feel like I'm really just in my groove right now. Pay attention to when those moments are. It might not be the entire workday, but there might be little moments that you see that can signal that that is something to really tap into, right? So that's a big one. Um, but yeah, I would say like just get honest. Maybe also get a coach. I am a coach, right? But like I've also had coaches. I always am a lot more focused and aligned and motivated when I have a coach holding me accountable, when I have someone who's pouring into me, having the right circle, like having the right community of people that can like really pour into you is so important. Like community is so, 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 so important. So those are some things that I would say.
Yeah, I think those are great suggestions. And another thing people should just be mindful of is that time doesn't stop, right? So if you're feeling stuck or uninspired, how long do you really want to stay feeling that way before you do something different? Because time will keep going regardless if you take action or not.
That's true. That is so real. I have some bad days. I have some crash out days, but every day is a new opportunity to like just reset and to start fresh. And the quicker we learn how to emotionally regulate, the more resilient we'll become, and the faster we will be able to move forward and navigate some of those tough moments.
I 100% agree with that. So, before I let you go, what is one leadership principle or habit that has totally changed the game for you personally?
Yes. Routine, routine, routine.
Mm.
Yeah, routine. Um, a morning routine and a night routine. And, I work with a lot of executives, I work with a lot of high performers. And one thing that they have in common is they all have a routine. They wake up, they eat the same thing, they do the same thing, even watching podcasts, listening to podcasts like this, of course, but, um, a morning routine is great. I'm not saying you got to wake up at 5 a.m. Maybe it's 8, maybe it's 9, but even if it's just a 30-minute routine, gratitude journaling, doing a meditation, you know, looking at your calendar for the day, like just doing something for you to get into your own like personal, like, I don't know, power, like your whatever that mood is that you're trying to embody for the day. So having a routine and having a night routine as well, like having a way that you wind down at night, like reflecting on the day, planning out your to-do list for tomorrow, decompressing, whatever that looks like, but having a routine. If I get off of my routine, it throws everything off for me. But having that routine keeps me grounded, keeps me balanced, keeps me focused. And I've seen it work with a lot of, my coaching clients too.
I think the beauty about that piece of advice is anybody can implement it starting immediately. So that's a great way to end. Where can listeners connect with you if they want to follow or work with you or learn more about you? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, so this has been great. I've enjoyed this conversation. My handle on Instagram and Twitter is the same, Letitia_Byrd. You can find me on LinkedIn. Spend most of my time between LinkedIn and Instagram. And then also my website, letitiabyrd.com.
Perfect. Well, Latesha, this was such an insightful and inspiring conversation. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise with us. And I will definitely be linking to all of your handles in the show notes so people can easily follow you.
Thank you so much for having me.